You're a North Carolina delegate, Green Party. First of all, how was your experience here? Because we know some horror stories from delegates elsewhere. It seems like delegates here had a pretty reasonable time.
Actually quite the opposite from anything I've experienced. Anyone I know who's been a Bernie delegate experienced. So the great thing about the Green Party is that it has become sort of an umbrella party for the left, and even some folks who are even like libertarian sort of left have gravitated here. So you have anyone from like Democrats to anarchists to socialists so it's really an interesting mixture of folks and how we've all come together towards a similar goal. Something that needs to happen.
So keeping it real for a second. When you have people on stage turning around saying, everybody raise your hand who's racist here, and other things.
I would like all of the people in here, and I think that a good number of you will stand up, but I would like all of the people in here who are racist to stand up. Racist. Racist. Those people in here who are racist. All right, now all you people who are sitting down, you have work to do. Okay? You've got work to do because you can't be growing up in this system here and not be racist. It's not possible. It's not your fault, but you can't do anything to transform it if you can't even acknowledge it.
When the media kind of takes that, I mean, they're going to do a number on a lot of the things that came out of the Green Party because it's so out of the mainstream. It's so radical, as they would say. The stuff you saw here, whether it be, talks about embracing your inner racist or things like that, do you think the Green Party, as is, this message could resonate? Or do you think certain factions need to kind of tweak the message to be more mainstream?
Well, I think we're in a certain point in political evolution where when you have different folks come together, for example, like in Occupy, I think in a way Occupy sort of focused on the economic issues and sort of, in most Occupies, a lot of the racial justice and immigrants' rights and things like that were sometimes not even like addressed. They were treated sort of like a side note or something that some folks wanted to champion, and then others was sort of something that people just decided to do. I think it's important if we're coming together as a party or as a political organization that's absolutely necessary, a kind of I don't want to say American Theresa, but something like what you see in some of these other countries that are happening, and even in England and Spain and Greece, you see folks realizing that you have to come together and have some sort of a platform to galvanize people. Sometimes, usually it's the movement that moves people forward, but sometimes there's a certain point at which a platform can galvanize the population and move the masses of people to believe in the possibility of what we're talking about. So I think that's what we're doing. So in order to do that, I think it's really important what Andrea did. She was actually the MC for most of it. And she said, we're going to let these folks have their time. And that was extremely important because it's one of those things where you might not agree with the tactic, but if you block people out, then you're giving more ammunition to division or anyone coming in and dividing us. And
did you hear that, DNC? When you block people out, you're giving more voice to division?
Yeah.
Go on.
Or literally lock them out or lock them in at the end. So it's this complete contempt for working people. I mean, that's what the Democratic Party has shown time and time and time again. And this is the exact sort of opposite thing. So I think as we grow and we bring all these folks in, not just from the Bernie folks, but I think you see a much more ethnically and internationally diverse crowd here than ever. So when you bring all these folks in, you have to go through that new cycle of like learning each other's experiences, and that comes two ways, because maybe the person who called everybody out for being racist might have a different approach the next time and realize maybe to get what I want to get across, I can do it a different way. Right. And maybe there's a deeper root to all of our oppression, and that's something you learn when you come together like this.
When you look at what Jill Stein's calling for, she's calling for a lot of things that essentially kind of close to FDR, how things were, New Deal era. Obviously back then, climate change was not as big of an issue as now, but kind of a return to caring about each other and caring about our communities. Not, I would say, a pre-Gordon Gekko era, where it's not about greed is good. It's humanity is good. It's a message that resonates with a lot of people, but it's also a message that would be up against a huge pushback. Let's just say she's president. She wins. Practically speaking, how do you fight up? The plutocrats aren't going to just throw the white flags in, or wave the flag and say, "All right, you're right. Let me finally care." So how do you kind of match humanity, caring about economic rights, social rights, climate justice, all this, with lobby after lobby, corporation after corporation? How do you do that?
Well, you have to have a movement behind the president. What happened, or that actually forces the president to do something. I mean, that's what happened with JFK. He didn't. I don't think the Kennedys. Robert Kennedy was against, totally against actually bailing or trying to get Martin Luther King out of jail in Birmingham. So this is one of those things where, but the power of the movement is something where is a force that they realized that they could not deny. And I think what Jill is very savvy at doing is putting these ideas out there that I think haven't had the kind of movement that they need, like canceling the student debt. Almost everybody universally wants it. I mean, across the board. However, there hasn't become there's been little signs of a movement, but compared to some other countries, let's say, the students haven't come together like they do, like in Montreal, when they were trying to just raise the tuition just a little bit higher, and you had millions of students in the streets, and that stopped them from raising the tuition. So we need to actually have these ideas out in the forefront and people to believe in it. And it's true, it's going to be difficult to do unless there's a huge mass movement behind this. I think it's going to happen. Whether it takes 4 years or it might be take 8 or a little bit longer, but it's going to happen sooner than we think. Amazing things can happen like the Bernie revolution or the Bernie movement happened in no time. So you never know.
What's been your personal evolution? I know you recently became green.
Yeah. Well, I've always been sort of on the left. So I sort of got disenchanted with all of that, even the left parties for a while, because it's just sort of like, we're like agree on 95% of stuff, and then, just because some faction decides that they want to do one thing, and all of a sudden they're kicked out, and it's just craziness to me, because it's like you're thinking more about growing your party than you're actually thinking about transforming your society. Sometimes. And I don't think that's their intent. I think it just becomes when you're sort of looking inward as a group instead of like outward. And I think a campaign like this forces people to go out and test their ideas and work with people that they might not completely agree with or even have some strong disagreements with. And I think that's the difference. What actually brought me to this was actually the Bernie movement, because I could see where things might happen if I knew he was going to be torpedoed. And then I was over 95% sure that he would, as he said he would, endorse the Democratic nominee. So I was like, well, if we don't have something in place with the strong anti-war and economic justice agenda, then we're just doing the same shit all over again. So that's what I'm like. And I knew Jill was the person. Jill actually won me over because I worked on her with the Earth Day to May Day event. It was called Global Climate Convergence a couple years ago. And she was basically facilitating these phone calls of like 30, 40 people, which is, if you ever facilitated a phone call or ever worked on a phone call, those are extremely difficult to do because you just have all these people talking over each other or trying to get these different things passed quickly. And she did a phenomenal job and made everyone feel, no matter what the political perspective, feel like part of something. And I knew that that's she has a very unusual skills in that way that I think would make her a great leader that we need right now.
And lastly, coming from North Carolina, you got the Republicans doing everything and within themselves to get rid of the right to vote, suppress voting, tell you where to pee, all these things. And North Carolina is actually considered in the general election one of the more important states, particularly for Donald Trump. Being from there, I mean, how do you kind of compartmentalize all the things you're talking about and what they're trying to do? Because it's night and day, what a Jill Stein and what you're pushing for and what the powers that be in North Carolina are pushing for.
Well, some of the what's been happening, like the HB2 bill, that was totally top down. So actually, that's really blown up in McCory's face. I even think this average. I mean, some folks
Explain it for the audience; they might not know what HB2.
HB2 is the bathroom bill. So that's the transphobic bathroom bill. But it goes several steps further by telling cities that they can't choose what to do, like they make their own decisions about, let's say, their own wages or their own benefits, that the state can actually override the city. And I think that's one of those deeper things that are going on. So this is a classic case of divide and conquer. They're trying to use like a hot button issue. It's almost like kabuki theater, because it's this, you have the Republicans doing something that's absolutely seems insane and, 100 years behind the time, and then it makes the Democrats look good. And so then we think, oh my God, we're saved, the Democrats are here, and then they come in power, and then they start cutting right and left, and then that pisses everybody off, and that shows, and then we don't vote for them, because if no one comes out, poor people don't come out to vote because their lives are getting the same or worse.
And then nobody comes out for the midterms.
No matter who, yeah, but I was one of the people who actually, we organized that big rally protest of Trump that we interrupted him like about 15 times. I've organized about 5 anti-Trump protests. I've been one of those organizers, so inside and outside. So it's not those either or. I don't believe that these people own our votes, and I think it was important that a Green actually was there, because it could easily become one of those things where Trump is the next Hitler. We have to vote for Hillary. And when you really look at their policies, really outside of his horrible rhetoric, a lot of their policies aren't that different. So it's, he supports, which is bad, but what we have from for Affordable Care Act, he's not like a complete out there, but he has been manipulating some neo-fascist sort of ideas, because he knows that this would actually get him a segment of the population that's very committed to him, and that's what they are.
More importantly than that, it's really about whether you believe either on the policies they're saying are their policies, because Absolutely. Trump changes his mind within each sentence, and Hillary Clinton has said many, many things, and then, when the election was over, when she won, kind of gone back on those things. So really, you're looking at 2 sets of policies, but really you have to look back at records. Trump doesn't have much of one, so you got to listen to, I guess, what he's saying.
Well, let's not forget that he donated to Hillary 4 times, and he donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. So, I'm not into conspiracy theories. I don't get into things that I can't prove, but it's obviously, these people are friends. They're obviously cut from the same cloth, and we have to drive that home. Not that Hillary is the savior from Trump, because they're all friends. So that's the message we have to say. That this is more of the same thing. That we can't be afraid of him if we have that movement going.
Thanks, man.
Right on.
Appreciate it.